Hello, this is Wild Phil coming at you from the unhappiest state in the U.S. of A., West by God, Virginia. Now you're going to ask me, Wild Phil, why do you say West Virginia is the unhappiest state? And believe me, that's not coming from me. It's a poll. They did a poll. They actually asked people how happy they were. Think of that. All over the world, all over the country, everybody else was happier than us. And you think about it, well, that's not right. I'm happy most of the time. No, you think about the number of people who are killing themselves with OxyContin. I spent a long night with my own mother at her bedside because she overdosed on OxyContin. So, don't tell me about people being happy in West Virginia. Not that I'm either unhappy either. It's just that the outsiders think we're unhappy. So here's the thing. When the flatlanders look at you and say, well, you don't measure up, you're not happy people, you can do one thing. You can say, oh, really? Then you can get all sad about it. Or you can say, screw you. What do you know about living in West Virginia? You're a flatlander. And by the way, I speak fluent French, and every now and then I might throw in a French phrase for you. Well, pardon me for doing so. I don't mean to abuse anybody. I just mean to amuse you. What I'm saying is, though, if you do find me throwing in a French phrase, then you need a translation of it. You go ahead and send me an email, and I'll send you the translation. Now, if you find me using one of my French phrases, and you already know the meaning of it, then shame on you. Just wanted to clear that up. Okay. We are poor. West Virginian people are poor. If you're poor, you're not happy. Back in the day, when you had mines and everything, everybody was getting screwed. Everybody during the mining days was getting screwed by the companies. But now, the thing of it is, we no longer belong to the mining companies anymore. See, that's one thing you need to get straight about the history of West Virginia. We were owned by the mining companies for a long time, and they said what get gone and what they said goes. Now we're owned by the Koch brothers. K-O-C-H. I want to call it Koch, but that's just a personal opinion of mine. Now the state of West Virginia is owned by the Koch brothers, and we need to take advantage, take cognizance of this fact and realize the old days of the UNW fighting the mines is over. Now it's whether or not we want to be a part of Koch Empire, which is what they're putting together in this country. Well, I digress, though. Seriously. Okay. It's like I'm hillbilly now. Now, some of you may think, yeah, well, he's a hillbilly. But I'm not a redneck. Now, there's a difference between being a hillbilly and a redneck. Hillbillies are like men like Jim Comstock, who put out the West Virginia Hillbilly for a number of years and published my early work in it. Comstock was a friend of the family, so to speak. I'll get into all that later, but, Comstock was a friend of the family who published a little column for mine called Phil's Fillers. Just short little lines, like, the fact that love is blind is no excuse for using the Braille method. Things like that, that came to the top of my head. Fluff, I call it. I used to stay up late at night and write all the fluff out and get all that stuff out, and then I'd sit down and write the serious poetry, which I'll be getting to on Tuesday. But what I mean to say now is you're going to ask me, wait a minute, Wild Phil, how dare you call yourself Wild Phil Jarrett? And it's true. I'm going to tell you up front, I have never been west of the Mississippi, except for on the interstate going back and forth when I went down from Milwaukee, Wisconsin to New Orleans, Louisiana, in a Pentecostal House of Deliverance van called Sister Gray's Soul Saving Mission and House of Deliverance. And then it had a big parenthesis after that, Jesus is the deliverer. That was in 1979 or so, and I got some stories to tell about a lot of stuff. The point is, that's the only time I've ever been west of the Mississippi, and that was just to take off the interstate and get back on another exit and get back on the other side of the river. Anyhow, I went to Nashville, though, when I was 18. I turned 18 in 68, so that kind of tells you that I was kind of destined for very much trouble in my life. The old Chinese saying comes to mind where they said, may you live in interesting times. Well, I looked that up, wherever on the internet, and I found out that that's not the real saying that the Chinese had, is that it is better to live in a time as a dog in a time of peace than a man in a time of war. I like to tell people I've never been a peace dog all my life. I've been out there on the front lines of every sort of revolution we had in the last half of the 20th century. I'm a participant and I'm an eyewitness. Eye camera, Phil. Oh, look at the world through my eyes. Oh boy, he's fucking paranoid. Oh, there's that French again. Yeah, he's paranoid. That's what you're going to say, and you're probably right. But I'll try not to be paranoid, which is somebody who's so paranoid that every time he opens his mouth, he just annoys you after a while. Paranoid, but not paranoying. That's the review I want for you people who write reviews of these little things on the internet. Now let me see. What was I getting to? All right, now you're going to ask yourself, who is Wild Phil Jarrett, and why should we listen to this man? Well, like I said, I'm a hillbilly, not a redneck. A redneck is a guy who lives up the holler. Very dangerous people. We knew rednecks. We knew them. The further up the holler, the worse they got. We knew not to mess with rednecks. We just, you learn. I mean, I remember clearly me and Dad and my brother Paul walking up this holler right here in Kanawha County, West Virginia, and we heard this voice coming from the hill, and we got about a half a mile up there, and all of a sudden we heard this voice coming from the hill saying, you boys just turn around now and go back to town. So my dad said, yes, sir, and we turned around and we went back to town. We'd walked up on some redneck still. You respect people who are violent. You don't necessarily emulate them. And I know this has come as a shock to all you Jeff Foxworthy fans, but, being a redneck isn't anything particularly good to most people in West Virginia. Most people the difference between a redneck and a hillbilly is the hillbilly's educated enough to know why he's in poverty, and the redneck just assumes it's the natural state of his world and lives in it the best he can. Well, yeah, enough about me. Now you're going to ask yourself, well, who am I to speak for West Virginia? And I'm not. I'm a West Virginian speaking for himself, But who am I as far as a West Virginian goes? Well, I was born in New Martinsville, West Virginia in 1950. As I said, I turned 18 in 68 and went down to Nashville, a little college called David Lipscomb College. It's a preacher's mill for the Church of Christ. And I had my adventures during the 60s. Now, I'll tell you some of my adventures during the 60s as, of course, this little exchange between us goes on. But for right now, I just want to tell you about my mom and my dad. At least not about them, but about my families. Now, the family on my mom's side can be traced back to the Nash family, and through the Nash family, and the Barker family, back to the old Melungeon clan. She was a dark-haired beauty. Yeah. I can say that of my mom. She's dead now, but, that's what happens when you stop living. Anyhow, here we are. That was Mom. And Dad was a short, pudgy preacher who looked a lot like me. And I got to say a lot about those two in the future time, but right now let me just say they're people. My granddad on my mother's side stood with the miners at Blair Mountain. And my great-grandfather on my father's side was preacher in the Church of Christ in Madison when Winter Jones' army came over the hills. He gave succor to the miners, as they say. And no, that doesn't mean what your dirty mind just said it meant. He took care of the miners. He fed them, gave them a place to stay. He listened to them. He believed in their cause. David Martin Jarrett believed in the cause of the miners so much that he put himself out and ran for politics. Now, this is why the Jarrett family doesn't do politics too often. Why you should really be blessed that I'm here to share the benefit of my heritage as Jarrett. Jarrett's a closed mouth people who like to open their mouths all the time. They talk a lot, but they talk close to the vest. That's what I'm trying to say. They have secrets, and everybody has secrets, but some people have demons inside of them, and they get used to them. My demons have forsaken me. That was a line from one of the poems I wrote. I'll read that to you sometime here. But I digress. Now here's the thing. David Martin Jarrett ran and was elected to the legislature of the state of West Virginia. And he was supposed to serve for a year. Well, the coal companies screwed up his account. They kept contesting the count and putting it off before he was sworn in. And they kept contesting the count, but they couldn't deny that he had won the election. So what the coal companies did was they strung my great-great-granddaddy out till the last day of his term. Because if he served one day, then that would count for the whole term he was elected to, and they were going to make damn sure that he wasn't elected for a second term.